Hi, welcome to another Uptown Lowdown. I'm Marty Duda.
And I'm Jemilah Ross Hayes. We hope you guys are all doing well in lockdown, but we're lucky that there's still lots of great music coming out.
Yes, indeed. We got lots of good stuff on this episode. We're going to feature a little interview I did with Tim Finn and Phil Manzanera from Roxy Music. We got Hollie Smith will be here. Sulfate's got a new album out. And you can find out who our new up-and-coming artist is. I think we got
awesome. So, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Alrighty, just kick things off today. Our interview of the week. I've done tons of interviews. That's all I do now is I'm on Zoom like day and night, and it's pretty cool. And the coolest one I did was with Tim Finn and Phil Manzanera. Now, Tim Finn, of course, is the founding member of Split Enz, lives right here in Auckland. Phil Manzanera is the guitar player for Roxy Music, and he's over in the UK somewhere. So the two of them put together an album. They kind of by sharing files, because obviously they can't be in the same room together these days. Yeah. The album is called Caught by the Heart, and believe it or not, it's inspired by Latin rhythm. So before we get going, let's hear a little bit of a tune called Mambo Salsa.
Mambo if you're down with Tito Puente, salsa if you're down with Celia Cruz. Music from Cuba, still a life force, pumping down the avenue. Mambo, salsa, mambo, salsa.
All right, that was Mambo Salsa, music made by Tim Finn and Phil Manzanera. What'd you think?
I thought it was really cool. I think it's really interesting how they created this album, and I think it's very relevant, like they're talking about in the interview that we'll play soon. Is just it is what it is now, and they also talk about how that's not just how it is in lockdown. It's kind of just like taken its way over into how we make music even when we're not in lockdown.
Right. I think the cool thing is, both of these guys are even older than me, and they're adapting and making music by file sharing and just doing whatever they got to do to work with the technology and the situation that's available at the moment. So, when you watch the interview, you can, because they go way back. Phil Manzanera produced the second Split Enz album back in like 1975. So they've been buddies kind of off and on ever since then. But this is kind of the first time they've actually done something on their own. So I was lucky enough to, So I was lucky enough to do this interview with the two of them. I think we did it at 9:00 at night here. So Tim is in Auckland, I was in Auckland, and Phil was somewhere in the south of England. And he explained that the place that he lived in was kind of Music Valley, because not only was he living there, but 5 minutes away was Brian Ferry, who's the lead singer of Roxy Music. David Gilmour from Pink Floyd lives around the corner. And there was somebody else that, somebody from Peter Gabriel's band or something. That was, so it was just like, oh my God. So anyway.
Sounds pretty cool, to be honest.
It was a pretty cool interview. And so they talked about the fact that they made this record by trading files and how it actually is a better way of making music in some ways. So check it out. Here we go.
I think one of the things about it, it's very ego-less. Like when you send files, not that Phil and I would have had ego problems, but
right.
Some bands can have ego, or people can have ego problems. But you send a file, it's very kind of pure in a way.
Right. It's just, here it is. Yeah. Take it or leave it.
Yes, I totally agree, because what I tend to do now is, if someone asks me to play on it, like Brian Ferry, for instance, I'd say, look, I'm not coming round to see you. He said, can you come round? I said, no, I'm not going to be there and be tortured. I remember those days. I will send you 6 different guitar parts. If you don't like them, rub them all out. I don't care.
Gotcha.
And use whatever you want. And see ya. Send me something else if you like what I do. And of course, it brings back memories of all that time in the studio when you are a band.
Yeah.
And you do, well, let's try it this way, let's try it that way. And then one person says, no, I don't like it. The other says, I do. and then it's like, I'm too old now. I can't do that. Take it or leave it.
So that's Phil Manzanera and Tim Finn talking about how they're working together, making this album called Caught by the Heart. I love the fact that, I mean, he's been working with Bryan Ferry since like the early 1970s. Now he's found a way where he doesn't actually have to be in the same room with them anymore. So that's kind of cool. Anyway.
Oh, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep. And so I think they've got more material that they put together, and there's going to be a second version of this. If you watch the whole interview, which is on the 13th floor already, they're going to put out a double vinyl LP next year with all of the stuff that they got. And both of them are working on other stuff as well. So we'll have to see what they come up with next.
All right, now on to our single of the week, which is by the lovely Hollie Smith. It's her first album in 5 years, which is pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, because you're a younger person, so do you know how big she was when she first burst on the scene like 15 years ago?
I don't think I was in the scene enough to experience that. However, I know who she is now because of that time, if that makes sense. Like,
sure it does.
She's just kind of been someone that I've always known about,
right?
Probably because of her being really big.
Yeah, and she's been through a lot over the course of her career. She has the big song "Bathe in the River," which everybody knows, so that's fantastic. So it's nice to see that she's back and doing her own thing again after quite a layoff. And I did get a chance to talk to her, but before we do that, so the single that she just released this week is called "What About," and it's with Reza Biza, who's I believe he's originally an African gentleman who now lives in Hamilton. So he helped out with the rapping bits and stuff. And so we'll listen to a bit of the tune, then we'll come back, and then I've got a bit more of Hollie for you.
Feels like rainfall, but it's way more. Should I stay for what I came for? Did you change or did I change for you? I'll just stand here in this rain for you.
You speak through your silence. You speak so loud I can't hear through the voices in my head saying stop holding falling dreams of you. Please take all the moments. Don't wanna drown in thoughts of you. Oh, my arms are tired, swimming upstream to an empty river. Oh, please don't play. I just want to hear you say, what about us? What about love? What about all that we gave up? What about all the promises? What about it? What about?
All right, so that was Hollie Smith. The song is called "What About." The album is called "Coming In From the Dark." It'll be out in October sometime. So I had another great chance to talk to Hollie, and the entire interview will be out on the 13th floor before the album comes out sometime. But she did talk to me about the song that we just heard, "What About," and making the video and all that. And it's pretty. She's just lovely these days. I keep running. Well, I was running into her when we went to the
we went to the
Fat Freddy's thing, right?
Yeah.
She was there for that, and she's fabulous. So this is what she had to say about making "What About."
Well, I'm lucky enough to have a couple of friends of mine, your husband and wife, Claire and Jake Mokumoko. They've done a few short films, and he's a freelancer cameraman, and they basically said, can we be involved? Be interested to have a look,
right?
And they've been super generous with their time and energy on the videos,
right?
So they've the main visual is For You, which is will come out around the same time as the album,
right?
And that's kind of like a medieval orgy type vibe.
Of course it is.
Might as well. And this one actually they threw together really quickly because I was just running out of time to create any visuals, and basically I was like, well, do you want to do it? And they were like, yeah.
Yep.
So they actually, it was after filming You, and I played Claire the album, and she really liked the song, and I was like, well, you can do it if you want to, but It's got to be pretty quick.
Yep.
And she was good friends with one of the dancers, and Ollie, and then there's Bianca who came on board, and they just pulled it together really quickly. It was done at the bank, the old ASB in Grey Lynn Way.
Right.
And just a really small crew and just knocked it out in an evening. So I was
Cool.
really grateful for everyone to come together for that one.
And what about the song that's got Reza Biza on the track? How did that happen?
I've been a fan of his for a long time. I was backstage at some gig and he got on stage and I just stopped and I was like, who is that? I haven't heard that before.
Right.
And I assumed he, lived elsewhere. Because I just hadn't heard that kind of flow around New Zealand so much.
Does he live in Hamilton?
He does, yeah. But then I kind of reached out to him. We hung out a couple of times, and then and he was doing his album last year, Summer in Retrograde, and he just put out a thing on Twitter going, I'm upset I don't have more guests on this record, and I just messaged him going, well, send me a track then, as you do in New Zealand. And he did, and that happened, and I really enjoy that track on his record, Family. And it was around the same time that I'd sort of finished the album, and then sitting on that song for a while, I just sort of felt like it needed another little element in it, and he totally brought it and transformed it into something really cool. That's probably one of my favorites on the record.
All right, that was Hollie talking about her new song, What About, featuring Reza Biza.
Yep.
Talking about making the video. I thought the video was beautiful. I thought I loved the aspect of dance.
Right.
And I'm always attracted to that in music videos, but I think that she did a really good job.
Yeah, and I think there's more to come. The impression I got when I did the interview with her, the full thing, is that she's very excited about this, and I think it's going to be a big deal when it comes out. Alrighty, now it's time for our new album of the week, and it is by Sulfate. The album is called God's Own. This is Sulfate's second album. They're obviously a local Auckland band, and they're run by a guy named Peter Riddell, who's also in Wax Chattels, and he plays with Jasmine Mary. I think I've seen him in like 5 different times in the last 3 months with different conglomerations of musicians. He's everywhere these days, but it's cool that they got this album out, and it's kind of bleak and dark and noisy and distorted, kind of fitting for the times that we live in. So, so we'll play a bit of it for you so you can get an idea, and then we'll come back and talk about it some more. Here's a tune called Crossing. That was Sulfate with Crossing from the God's Own album. Now, I did have a chance to talk to Peter because everybody and his mother is just sitting waiting to be Zoomed up. So it's pretty cool.
I mean, it's pretty much all we can do. So
I know it's nuts. It's a whole new way of living. Anyway, and the full interview is on the 13th floor already. But one of the questions I asked him, because a lot of people know him from playing in Wax Chattels as well. And the other 2 people that I should say are in Sulfate are Harriet Ellis and David Harris. So I asked Peter, like, for him, what is the difference between the music and playing with Sulfate and Wax Chattels?
Well, I think Sulfate it started with this idea that it's intense through restraint. Wax Chattels has always been going really gung-ho, it's
That's
always
true.
been very loud and fast and everything's very like confined and short. And Sulfate, I wanted to create more of an atmosphere and a mood to these songs, so they're quite a bit longer.
Right.
And I feel like through that ethos of this intensity through restraint, it opens up different doors, because you can, I guess, approach songs differently from the outset. You don't need to cram these different ideas. You don't need to keep it tight and this clean package. It can kind of go where it goes.
Yep.
And which is why on this record, I feel like, recording it as a band, it kind of took this different shape to the first Sulfate record. It kind of went places where I didn't expect it to go. Listening back to the demos and listening back to the record, that there's a marked difference there, which I think is really, basically it's just great playing with people. That's what I'm thinking at this point,
All right. So that was Peter Riddell talking about how he just loves playing with people.
Yes, he
And
does.
you could just pick one album this week because there were quite a few. And I'd love to talk about Bernhoft, his new album, Dancing on My Knees.
Yes, this is an act I've never heard of. So
yeah, I mean, I've heard of him. I've been listening to him for a while. He's got a song called Buried Gold that's been quite a number one on my playlist. So it's cool to see him releasing new music, which is very exciting.
He's Norwegian, correct?
Yeah, a Norwegian singer and multi-instrumentalist, which I didn't actually realize until checking out his video content, which we can check out a little song of right now.
I get carried away.
So that was Bernhoft's song Opinionate from his album Dancing on My Knees.
I'm curious, how did you know about him? How did you find out about him?
Kun has listened from odds and ends, has been listening to a lot of his music.
Yeah.
And he passed it on to me, and then now I did my own sort of discovering.
Right. I'm always fascinated with the way people discover people because
for me it's often like a Spotify playlist. So artists that I already like. I listen to like their radio, and that often has other artists. And then if I really like their music, I'll dive in and sort of check out their profile.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, it's time to take a break. On the other side of the break, we got lots of cool stuff. We have our up and coming artists, 2 of them that we're going to present to, and some new albums that will be coming out on Friday. So stay tuned.
All right, coming back from our break, we're going to be talking about our up and coming artists this week.
Who we got?
Yeah,
I usually leave it up to you because you know all these up and coming people.
Oh, we got one each because we're just too excited.
That's true. Yep.
First is Ruben Hudson with his new song that he's just released called Drag, with featuring Jade Lewis.
Right.
He's a really cool sort of experimental indie rock sound. And on his Spotify bio, he says his reason for making music is just having fun, dude.
I can't argue with that.
I've talked with Ruben, and he's very much this just relaxed, beautiful, friendly human being. And he's got lots of music planned for 2021, so we'll be looking forward to lots of.
What's the song called? Drag.
Let's
give it a spin.
Do it for yourself, Johnny. Do it for your wealth. Do it for your loved ones, but remember your own health. I expect the worst, always waiting on a twist. You ain't making money, it don't make a difference. Boy, you're such a drag. Can't believe you have your tea like that. I just like it black. I've been told I got a neck for that. Boy, you're such a bore. What on earth are you fighting for? I'm trying to make this bright blue light. Guess I'm sweet tonight.
That was new music from Ruben Hudson, our up and coming artist from Auckland. Now I've got one who's actually from Italy.
Wow.
Her name is Julia Bardo. And so she's an Italian young lady who now lives in Manchester in Northern England.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's about 25-ish, somewhere in that vicinity. In fact, I did an interview with her, and it was her birthday just a couple of days before that. So not only was it the day that her album was being released, but it had just been her birthday. So she was flying high.
Celebrating.
So anyway, she's got a pretty cool sound. The album is called Bauhaus L'Appartamento, which I think it just happens to be where she was staying at the time when she was making the record or something. But like I said, she's Italian. She moved to Manchester. And so we'll play some of the music for you. She has a song called It's Okay to Not Be Okay. This will give you an idea of where she's coming from, and then we'll come back and talk about her a little bit more.
It's okay to not be okay. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay.
Okay, that was Julia Bardo. It's Okay Not to Be Okay, which you get the idea from just the title of that song. She's kind of dealing with stuff, which I did an interview with her and she talked about that quite a bit. So I highly recommend doing it. And it was really cool because it was a Zoom interview, just like what we're doing now. And usually, especially, lots of people are very worried about how they look and come across on Zoom. And sometimes they don't even like their video used, right? So here it was Friday, the day of her album release. It was 10 o'clock in the morning in Manchester, and we're getting ready to do the Zoom. She comes on, I do the click, she's there, and she's literally had just come out of the shower.
Yeah.
So she's in her gown, and her hair is like all wet. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I thought it was really great because she just didn't care, you know?
I mean, it's very relatable, and that's sort of what everyone is like right now. And writing a song, you know, it's okay to not be okay is so relevant.
Exactly.
And also being in your dressing gown 24/7 is also very relevant.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So she was obviously in her kitchen having breakfast and talking to me. And then she showed me her Nutella, which you'll see in the interview, which she made herself. So she gives so that's pretty cool. But we'll play a little bit of the interview so you can see her in her gown and her hair and all that, where she talks about how for her, the whole lockdown pandemic thing where everything kind of came to a halt for her was actually a good thing for her.
I had a lot of time to focus on myself more.
Right.
And that was very, very helpful, actually. For me, the pandemic I needed it. I needed the time off to work on myself as a person.
Okay.
Because when I was touring the EP, and I really, I wasn't enjoying it, and it was pre-pandemic, then the tour got cancelled, and for me, it was a good thing.
Right. I've heard that quite a bit from artists who've said, actually, you know, I kind of needed a break.
Yeah, it really helped. Like, really helped me focusing on myself and like work on myself. And I remember the first gig we did after the pandemic, first ever gig. I was happy. I was like, oh my God, I enjoyed it. And it was it was a new thing to me, and it was really good. So yeah, that also I grew as a musician. My also taste not change, but like got more widened up, and
right.
You know, it was good.
Okay, now time for a couple of upcoming album recommendations. These are records that are be coming out on Friday that we're all excited about and stuff.
There's lots this Friday. I can't
yes,
wait.
There are. Yeah, it's picking up. Well, see what happens is everybody's anticipating Christmas. So people are thinking.
It is that time of the year already.
I know it's bad. It's so bizarre, but that's what it'll get. It'll suddenly there'll be more and more releases coming until about the beginning of November, and then they'll all drop off to nothing.
There'll be only Christmas music.
Sadly, Snoopy's Christmas every day. But now back to Jordan. The album is called What We Call Life. Now, we should say Jordan Reiki is a Kiwi. He was born, I believe, in Wellington, but he was raised in Australia. We won't hold it against him. Now he lives in Wales, and he's got this, I think this is like his 5th record or something. So so he's doing well. Let's give it a listen. This is the newest track. There's a bunch of tracks that have been released already from the album. This one is called Unguarded.
I'm unguarded. I saw you in surrender. Found somebody who had shown me forgiveness. I let it break away. I break away. I let it break away. I break away.
That was Unguarded by Jordan Reiki. I think his music is really beautiful, and I love that he's a Kiwi artist with roots in other places. I think that that's probably plays a lot into his success, being in Wales and being in Australia and growing that audience. And I think for a pop artist, he's got real soul in his music. And soul, by soul, I mean like heart, rather than
I know what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it's interesting because Aldous Harding, a Kiwi, is also based in Wales these days as well. So it must be something moving them over there.
Maybe we should go to Wales.
Who knows? Anyway, but there are other albums out on Friday as well that we're all excited about. Lindsey Buckingham. I got to ask you about this. You know, Lindsey Buckingham is from Fleetwood Mac, right?
Yeah.
So he's been thrown out of Fleetwood Mac because he annoyed Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
Like he rolled his eyes or something during an interview. I don't know. So this has been going on for like generations now between them. Do you care?
Do I care? Not emotionally. I would say that for a lot of people, yeah, they probably do care, because it's like Fleetwood Mac, even for me, are a part of my life, you know.
Right.
I used to work at this coffee shop and we'd have records and we'd have Fleetwood Mac on all the time. But I think I care about their music, but I was never in the generation that was like attached to them as human beings, you know.
Yes. And they had and apparently back in the late 70s or 80s or something, they did a show down in Wellington, and Stevie and Lindsay got into a huge fight on stage, started whipping stuff at each other and stuff. So they've been having all sorts of problems over the years, which is, so lately there's been all these rumors that, oh, maybe they're going to patch things up. And Mick Fleetwood, the drummer, was like hanging out with Lindsay and suggesting that maybe they can all make up. But then somebody said something in the press, Stevie said something, Lindsay said something, and now they're not talking again. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, he's got an album out. I think it's self-titled. Vika and Linda have an album coming out on Friday.
Cool.
The Beths have a live album coming out. And
James
Vincent McMorrow. You know him? You familiar?
Yeah, he was one of the first artists that I started listening to, like when I was like 14, 15. I used to listen to quite a lot of acoustic sort of soft music. And I hadn't listened to him in a while. And so seeing him pop up on the list was kind of like, that's quite nostalgic. I think I'll definitely check it out. He's got really beautiful music. So
cool.
It'll be cool.
Now, speaking of nostalgia, I got to ask you another thing. Do you care that ABBA are back together?
That's a little bit more close. I loved ABBA when I would, me and my friend had a competition of who could learn the most ABBA lyrics. And so I'd play the CD and she like ripped their songs off, you know, like burnt it onto a CD.
Right.
And we'd sing with like microphones and pretend. So that's quite, even though it's not my generation, it was still like a massive part of my childhood. And I think it's pretty awesome that they're back together. And I think they've filmed like a whole show with.
Right. They've made avatars of themselves, which is great because, you know, I mean, we're all, none of us are getting any younger, and and people want to remember them the way they were anyway, because I mean, they were huge in the 70s. I always kind of dismissed them as being kind of a little too bubblegummy to be taken seriously, but that was just me. But, you know, I mean, who doesn't love Dancing Queen? I mean,
they must have had one of the longest runs of fame, because they not only have great music, but then there was the whole Mamma Mia series.
Right.
That is still coming out. Like, they're quite recent, those films.
Yep. And I think they did the smart thing by just not doing anything together for years and years and years. So it's been like 40 years since they've been on stage together or made any kind of music together. And now suddenly it's just like, boom, here's the song. And they were asked like, well, why are you doing it now? And they're like, well, we're still alive, so we might as well.
Might as well, yeah.
So I think the album is going to be huge
a bit more, like, so good.
Yeah, that album is going to be huge, and that whatever tour that they're doing with the avatars will be strange. But anyway, we have
like a fair thought, because it's not really like we can be really going to concerts. So just rather than like scheduling it and canceling it, they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to make a virtual experience that's going to be really awesome for people.
Yes, indeed. All right, we have one more new album that I wanted to touch on. It's by Plum Green. Do you know Plum? She's a Kiwi.
I haven't heard of them before you mentioned them.
No, it's not a them, it's a her.
It's a her. Cool.
It's a her. And she is a Kiwi. I believe she's based in Australia at the moment, but she has been up here to the 13th floor, and she's got an album out called I don't even know if I can pronounce it. Somnambulist, which I have to look it up, but I have a feeling it has something to do with sleeping. So let's.
Somnambulistic.
Yes, that's the one. So we'll just boom, 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 boom. Yes, here we go. It means the act of getting up and walking around. Oh, it's sleepwalking.
Oh, that's cool. I'm a big fan of weird names for things, like weird song names and weird album names, because
Right.
it's so satisfying when you get it, when you know what it means, and you feel real smart. You can go around telling people now, like, oh, that means.
Yep. and you can just find out like that. I love it. So
Yeah.
she does have some music out already, which we'll play, and then we'll come back and say goodbye. So this is a tune off of the album. It's called White Kitten.
Can I follow you home? I can't be here alone. The words are listening and suspicious of me.
All right. Well, that was new music from Plum Green. The album or the song is called White Kitten. And you see, I got a little note from Plum because I'm going to be talking to her during the week, of course.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to do. So she's written that it's a 9-track album full of dark lullabies. Something to scare the children.
Oh, it's very enticing.
Yep. Apparently, there's a concept behind the album to create something comforting. She says it's a giant protection spell against the horrors of the world without completely ignoring them. So all answers will be revealed when I talk to her later this week. But I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty cool album. And I think she's going to be coming back to New Zealand in January to do some gigs as well. So hopefully the album will come out. So I think that's it for this edition of the Uptown Lowdown.
One final mention.
Yes.
So many mentions. My lovely friend Montgomery is releasing a single next Friday.
Okay.
So, new music.
We'll probably feature it as a new song of the day on the 13th floor.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, his name is George Manning, but he goes under Montgomery as his artist name, and he's been released.
Any idea why?
It's his middle name.
Of course.
Yeah, I asked him one time. I was like, "How did you come up with this?" Oh, it's my middle name, and I was like, "Oh, wow, it's an awesome middle name."
That is a good middle name. Mine's really boring.
No, mine definitely wouldn't be my artist name, but yeah, awesome new stuff. So be looking forward to that.
All right, very good. Well, hang in there. Who knows when this lockdown is going to end? Hopefully, we can go to some gigs soon. But it's good to see you virtually, and we'll do it again very soon.
Yeah. See you next week.
And conditioning me.
The 13th Floor Uptown Lowdown is brought to you in part by a grant from the New Zealand Music Commission and by the Uptown Business Association.